Good morning. Today I am going to continue with the introduction to data wrangling. So here in this lecture I have already discussed three tasks involved in the data wrangling process, and today I will be discussing the other three tasks in the data wrangling. So here this is what we have. So this is data discovery, data structuring and data cleaning. These are over, and data enriching, data validating and data publishing I will be discussing today. Okay, so for completeness I will just rush through the previous slides. Data wrangling is the process of cleaning, structuring and enriching the raw data into desired format for better decision making in less time. Okay, so there are 6 steps in this, and the first one is data discovery. This is compilation of disparate and siloed data sources. So disparate means distinctly available, separated, highly separated, unconnected. Same thing, isolated. Siloed means isolated, unconnected, independent data sources. So this we have to configure each of them, and then we have to start the analysis part. Okay, so before analysis, the data discovery is needed. Second step is data structuring. So in this one, actually the raw data has no definite structure and is completely disorganized, and given a structure to the raw data allows better analysis. So we have to give a structure to that. So unstructured data is often text heavy. So if I take the raw data without any structure, so mostly it will be written in the form of a text, because even the numericals are also written text, maybe separated by some commas or semicolon like that. And there are dates, numbers, ID codes, etc. Okay, so it is a flow of characters simply, and you have to identify the meaning for each character there. So that is what that happens during the structuring phase. So the raw data, whatever we have collected raw data, it has separators, it has different characters. So we have to understand them. So before that we have to parse it. So we have to parse it means we have to separate out the actual data and separate the additional characters. Then we have to do the further, then we have to go for the structuring. So parsing is a process in the beginning of the structuring. So what is parsing? Parsing is a process by which the required data is extracted from its unreadable. Unreadable means human unreadable. Thus humans cannot read, but machine might be able to read it. Okay, so it is machine formatted, machine friendly, not the human friendly. Okay, here there is some contradiction. So here basically because if it is, for example, if I take HTML page, it is already stored as the HTML page, and there is a JSON file, and from these two if you want to extract the data, so in that case this comes here. Okay, so basically parsing is getting rid of the unwanted tags or nodes, unwanted metadata, unwanted header information from the machine readable format basically. Okay, so this is, here the raw data means it is, the raw data can come from machine format or the human readable format also. Okay, so there are two things here. So the raw data can come from direct experiments, or human readings must have just read it, must have written it like as in a logbook, okay, continuously. Then that is to be properly identified in this case, and in this is applicable for the case of a machine formatted one. Okay, so this is the some raw data will be written. For example, let us say with handwritten is there, so you have to enter that into an Excel sheet. So that handwritten I can consider it as a raw data. Okay. So that is what is you are formatting that in the form of an Excel sheet. In this case, already some formatted data is there, but that is also raw data only. So because of some automated process, these files were generated. From this I have to parse. So these are machine generated. I have to parse the actual information here. So the parsing is basically applicable to the machine formatted raw data. I should say machine formatted raw data. Okay. So now the output of parsing is a user-friendly spreadsheet containing structured data with attributes, labels, headings, and so on. So ultimately, we are trying to convert this raw data and machine readable data into a beautiful spreadsheet. Then data cleaning, I already discussed deeply about this. I'll just rush through this. Null values must be identified and eliminated or filled. You have to eliminate or you have to fill. You cannot leave the gap like that. Then duplicates must be identified and removed. And structural errors or typos must be corrected. Standardizing the system of measurements. So inches may be converted into centimeters, or Fahrenheit degrees may be converted into centigrade system of temperature. Okay, so like that, some standardizations may be needed, and data format must be standardized to improve the quality and consistency. Same thing here also. It is in general, it is applicable for not only temperature, there are so many other things also. And outliers must be removed, else the analysis results will be skewed. Okay, so this is what. So outlier. So outlier, I think I am going to discuss about that one, which stands out differently from the majority of the data. So that is what is outlier. And if I consider this outlier, then the analysis goes totally wrong. It is skewed means it will deviate from the original situation. Now data enriching. Enriching the data with additional data. So what is enriching data here? It is additional data means from other sources. Same data available collected by different sources. For example, you want to add that data also. It is an optional step basically. So it is taken when the current data is inadequate. That means the number of samples, the population size is very small. So not small, I mean it is not large, for example. So you want huge data. In that case, you have to merge some of the data's additional data which is linked to the same experiment here. Okay, maybe independently at different geographic locations, people have done same experiments were done by different people at different geographic locations. So you have the additional data there. You have to add that data. But so by adding this one, you are enriching the data, not only in the quality of the data, but also in the size of the data. Okay, so there is because the more data means you can do more analysis and better analysis basically. Then combining the raw data from additional sources such as internal systems, third-party providers, etc. So this will help us to accumulate even more data points. Same thing here, whatever I told here, same thing here, to improve the accuracy of the analysis. Okay, so this internal systems means in an organization we must be having different data. So there may be surveys taken from the employees, or surveys may be taken might be taken from the customers by different departments. So customer, for example, sales department and service department, they have taken they have taken the data from the same set of customers. So then you can combine them. Okay, so more data, and if there are any biases in one data, it will be erased if you take the other set of data. So that is what is enriching. That means you are making the data more valuable than earlier. So that is what is called the data enriching. And of course, there are several things which you can come across in your own organization and in your own field. So this is, you have to think of your own ways of enriching the data. It is not that only this technique, one or two techniques are available in this case. So you have to invent your own means of enriching your data. So combining two databases of student information. This is another example. So not only from the data files, from databases also you can enrich the data. Okay, let us say some data is there in the CSV file, some other data is there in the database file. So these two, database, not file. So database. So both you can club and you can merge these two information, pivoting to the anchoring to one attribute. For example, student information is there, where one contains student address, the other one doesn't. So this is the same class, same section, same roll numbers, but at one point, in one data set, one department has collected the student addresses, other department has collected only roll numbers here. Okay, so in that way, so you have to, by adding these two, your data can become more enriched. So you are enriching the data. So that is the meaning of enriching the data. Then data validating. So data validation, this is the very, very important. In fact, if you are very good in data validation, if you have taken care of the validity of the data, that means more accurate data, more authentic data, if it is there, the number of outliers almost will become zero. Okay, I mean, it won't become zero anytime anyway, but it comes to very low value. Okay, so the data validation, if the data validation step is very good, then probably you can save a lot of time in identifying the outliers, or at least the outlier problem 70 to 80% maybe it will be reduced. Okay, number of outliers will be reduced if the data validation is good. Okay, actually you can in fact after data validation, I mean, what I feel is after this validation, then data cleaning must come. Okay, so the order, I mean, you can also change your order as per your understanding. So what is data validation? Data validation is the process of ensuring the accuracy and quality of the data. So how you increase the accuracy and quality of the data. Okay, and in the automated systems, for example, if I take automated systems, the data that enters the system is to be validated to meet the desired quality standards. I think same thing here. It is. So it is additional thing is automated systems. In automated systems, there is no human being to check and validate each data value, because human intelligence is not involved. In that case, what happens is you have to validate this data before it enters the system. Okay, before it enters the system. Otherwise, the data will become sometimes meaningless also, sometimes, some records. So it is implemented by building several checks into the system or document. It can be an online system, or it can be a process control system where you are recording the different physical parameters, temperature, pressure, like that in a physical system, in a process, or some level of some chemical, or the velocity of the gas. So like that, you can volume of the gas, pressure of the gas, like that. Okay, so there is a system, or it can be a document also. So you have already collected all these things, whatever I told just now, the physical parameters, all those physical parameters you have already collected and entered into the document. And even after the data is in the form of a document, there could be errors. Okay, it would be because of because this when you talk about automated system, the errors could come because of some improper improper process. For example, sometimes random data because of noise, for example, you can say noise. So instead of 100 millivolts, because of a noise spike of 100 millivolts minus 100 millivolts, 100 millivolts will become 0 because noise is subtracted. So that kind of thing. Not only voltage and current, and in the real-time experiment, it can happen even in case of the data also. Okay, and I'm not at this point of time in in this topic, I'm not going into details how these errors happen. Now, to ensure the logical consistency of the data. So this is logical consistency of the data. Simple example, one consistency from mathematics point of view. Let us say you have two equations. Let us say something like this, A. So let us say we have A x plus by equal to C, and let us say A1, B1, C1, then A2 x plus B2 y equal to C. Okay. So what is there are in this case there are two equations, two simultaneous equations, and two variables. So when I find the solution for these equations, I will get, let us say, x value is 2, y value is 5. Okay. So x value is 2, y value is 5. When I substitute 2 and 5 here, these are known. The coefficients A1, A, B1, C1, A2, B2, C2, these are constants, they are known already. And I am finding the solution for this, that is x equal to 2, y equal to 3. Let us say x equal to 2, y equal to, I think 5 I told. So 2 comma 5, that is the solution. Now when you substitute this equation should be satisfied. When I substitute in the second equation also, it should be satisfied. If it is satisfying only first equation, if it is not satisfying the second equation, then I should say that this data, whatever x comma y, 2 comma 5, is not a consistent data. So there is no consistency. You are claiming that it is this data value is satisfying these two equations, but it is satisfying only one equation. So there is inconsistency here. So that kind of inconsistencies, you have to you should be interested in this one. Okay. So that is logical consistency. So logically, it should be meaningful also, because if the data is not consistent, automatically when you apply the logic, it comes out. It cannot hide behind the logic. Okay. Nothing can hide behind the logic. If that logic is proper, the truth really comes out. Okay. So the quality of the data and accuracy of the data. Accuracy of the data means, is it up to 2 decimal digits or 3 decimal digits, and that is need not precision. You can have precision, and accuracy of the data means it is how accurate it is with respect to the physical parameter. In fact, nothing we know about the physical parameter. Whatever we sense is through the measurement system only. Okay, so high accurate instrument or low accurate instrument. That is the only difference. Then consistency, as I discussed, the data should be meaningful. There should not be any inconsistencies in the data. Then security, security, not much to be discussed here. And authenticity. These are the two things. So this is important, authentic. So you should, the data, whatever you select through surveys or experiments, they should be authentic. That is the reason we go for standard data sets. If we don't experiment or we don't go to do research on some local databases or which are not authenticated. Okay. So if it is some standard databases certified by somebody, then only we consider, and that's why authenticity is needed. Of course, the data validation is not much connected with the security and authenticity. And along with this is also another parameter. Okay. That means basically validating the data means if the data set is somebody not familiar with you, probably you may discard that data set because it is not popular. It was not tried by many people, and it was not certified or recommended by many people. So you should be very careful. So that is also in that sense, whether to consider the data or not, probably you have to see the authenticity of this one. Okay. And the validation checks can be of different kinds. So how you are going to check this validation? there are several types of validation checks, but however, I listed here only some 4 or 5 validations which we come across commonly. Data type validation. So this is very generic one. A numeric field may only allow digits 0 to 9. The decimal point and possibly a minus sign or commas. Okay. So when you are so let us say I want to write $13,000. Okay. So this is what is the thing, and I can put comma here. Sometimes comma may not be available. So one data source may be having commas there. Some other database may not be having the commas in that attribute. Okay. So you have to really validate here. Validate both data sets and both fields, and you should normalize these differences, this comma, whether to consider the comma or not. Okay. And of course, when this kind of data validation is properly available when you are entering the Excel sheet or CSV file, Excel sheet or okay. So in that one, it gives, if you define the column as a numeric date field, it allows only the date format. It won't allow any other format. Okay, there is a limitation there. Now, when I say it is a numerical value, it allows only the so it allows only the 0 to 9. And if it is real number or fractional number, then it will allow decimal point. Otherwise, decimal point it may not allow. And because it is a value, it can be minus also. For example, a currency, it cannot be minus. I mean, of course, some debit credit accounts, when you see, there will be a minus. So it is left to your discretion what is valid and what is not valid. So that validation rules of data type you are going to define. Okay. So that is what you have. And this is what commas, sign I discussed, and digits and decimal point. Okay. Then range and constraint validation. So this is the range and constraint validation. If you take the age of children, let us say there is a column of age of children, then definitely you can limit from few months, maybe, or above 1 year to maximum 14 years or 16 years, like that. You have to fix that one. Okay. So this is the range, minimum and maximum if you set it. And in your Excel sheet, if you can set minimum, maximum, it won't take beyond that. Any graphic user interfaces of any kind of software, this kind of validations are done behind the user interface. And in the same way, even in case of our data files also, when you read the data files and you validate that, and probably if anything is beyond these limits, you remove them or you clip them. Okay, clip from the, if it is something, if the minimum value is 0, then if minimum value is 0, if -2 is there, then clip it to 0. And maximum value is 255, then if something is there with the 257, make it 255. Okay, so like that, there is a constraint you can create, range constraint this is called, and counter value cannot be negative. So as in our for loops or do loops, in our programming, you have to, because the programming code is also data. Okay, if you think that it is string, if you are thinking of some kind of, when you talk about compiler design, when you talk about grammars, syntactic grammars, all those things. So, and when you talk about any kind of programming, any Java programmer, it should follow the rules of the programming language. Okay, if you want to, because it is, of course, it won't come under this, but that also you can include under validation. Even the code also, programming code also you can validate, and numerical values you can validate, anything you can do. Okay, so that's why constraint validation. I'm thinking like that. I'm considering like that. So it depends on the constraints. What constraints you are locking on only to the numerical values, not to the code. Then not to any programming code. Then the steps will be different. Okay, so if it consider a counter, for example, it cannot be negative because count cannot be negative. Okay, it always starts with 0. So, and password may be required to meet a minimum length and contain characters from multiple categories. So, many times we are asked to meet a poor, strong, or excellent, something like that. Passwords. Okay, some guidelines will be given for us when you are creating any password, and it should contain the capital letter, one capital letter, more than one special characters, numericals like that. It will be size string. Okay, so all those things. How it is possible? You are creating the constraints there. Then only it is possible. Okay, so in the same way, any such things are there. Probably you have to look into that one also. Okay, and contain the characters from multiple categories. Multiple categories means capitals. Multiple categories means capitals, special characters, small letters, numericals like that. Then code and cross-reference validation. What is this code and cross-reference validation? Operations to verify that data is consistent with one or more possibly external rules, requirements, or collections relevant to a particular organization, context, or set of underlying assumptions. So I will read it again. So here, code validation, one is there, and cross-reference validation, two are there in this. Operations, what is this? Operations to verify that data is what this consists of. Under this category, all operations required to verify that data is consistent with one or more possibly external rules. So there are some external rules which are laid by the organization or the system, whatever you are using. Requirements or collections relevant to a particular organization, context. Based on context, you have to have certain things or set of underlying assumptions. So context, assumptions. So, and there are some requirements, some rules. Rules, requirements, context, assumptions. These are the four things here. Okay. So you should see that all these things are satisfied. Okay. So this point it will be clear if we go through the next sentences. A user provided country code might be required to identify a current geopolitical or geographical location or phone number. For example, if we take India, its international code is, ISD code is 0091. So, if the international code is 91, you can identify that this phone is from India. Phone number. Even if you just give the phone number, so you have the record of the geographical region. So automatically this is user provided country code. So based on this phone name, including the ISD code, you can identify which region is for this phone belongs to. So that kind of cross references. One is geographic location, other one is phone number. These two you are crossing and you are cross referencing this to validate that. Okay, and you know that the customer, you have some Indian phone number, maybe operating from some African continent, then probably you have to really validate that one. Okay, because whatever subsidies or whatever the price of book international publishes, it is locally, the price is only locally available to certain geographic locations. Okay, the whatever price they claim. So if you want to properly implement that system, you have to, you should get the, you should take the cross references like this. So you have to validate whether the user or the customer is really from India, is the discount is applicable to him or not. So that kind of things, cross references. So this is what one example. Then uniqueness of the data, that is email IDs, driving license numbers, etc. So this uniqueness of data means email IDs, there are no two email IDs are same. We all know. Okay. So this is no two phone numbers can be same if you include the ISD code also. Okay. So in that way, you have to identify the uniqueness of the data. Of course, this is partly eliminated when you talk about when you eliminate the duplicates, automatically uniqueness of data is maintained. But apart from that one, when you consider the data from other side, you can other data sets also, different data sets are there. Some isolated data sets, if you take, still this problem will exist. Okay, so that is what you have to do. Then structural validation. It is a very complex process which includes combination of other kinds of validation. This structured validation, it includes several other validation techniques which we discussed so far, and the second point I will explain after this. The testing of the conditional constraints for an entire complex data object or set of process operations within the system. Okay, so let us say we have an industry, chemical industry, where there are 10 processes. 10 processes means, let us say, 10 instruments at 10 different locations. They are collecting the data, but the same product is going through the conveyor belt, through these systems, through these 10 processes. Then they are different points, they are collecting different data sets. Okay, now the data set has become a very complex, because at 10 stages of the same product, 10 stages, 10 systems are collecting this, 10 subsystems are collecting the data. So all this data belongs to one product. Okay, now you want to organize the data like that. Okay, so this is what is structured. You are creating the more structure into the data and set of operations within the system. Okay, as I told you, subsystem, actually the system has several subsystems. You are collecting the data of the same object at different subsystems. One example only I am giving. You can intelligently bring out your own examples for that. So you have to combine all those things. And for example, in one subsystem, the data, the date and the time, they are in one format. In this another subsystem, the date and time formats are different. So you have to validate this total structure, not only subsystem data. Whatever we discussed so far, we validation something within the data set. We can consider one level. And if I take the system also, the entire complex data object. It is a data object. When I say, of course, I am just figuratively attaching this data object to some physical product whose data is recorded as a data object here. Not because just it is a data object. It is, okay, actual physical product is there. The data corresponding to that physical object, you can call it as one data object. Okay, so our set of processes, operations within the systems. Okay, I think you understood this. So basically, several systems of data you are combining into a complex data set, and you are trying to test for constraints for each subsystem. I mean, each subdata, you can say, subdata set, and you are trying to combine all this data. Okay, every system, every subsystem has, every subdata has its own constraints. So somehow you should understand the relations between these constraints. You have to normalize this to make into a single data set. Then consistency validation. So this already several occasions in the previous validations we have discussed about that one. Just logical, ensures that data is logical. And some examples we will see here. The delivery date of an order cannot be before the shipping date. Okay, so if you take Amazon, so delivery date will be always after the shipping date. Shipping cannot happen after the delivery. Okay, so that is that kind of inconsistencies you have to seriously look into. And after the expiration date, the status of an item cannot be active. There is some spelling grammar mistake here. Sorry for that. Then the status of an item cannot be active. It is inactive. Once if a medicine is expired, then you should not say that that is active. You should say that not available, stock not available, like that. Okay. So the are inactive. That kind of things you have to put it here. That is also, if you say expiration date is over, but it is active, there is inconsistent. This is another example of inconsistency. Then this is delivery date before the shipping date is another inconsistency. These are all inconsistencies in our real word examples. Okay. Then systems may represent the same data differently, in which case comparison requires transformation. Example, order of the first, middle and last name. So here some systems, some edit boxes or some forms, online forms, they may ask the last name first name after the last name and middle name at the end, like that. Some user interfaces, they ask the first name, middle name, last name, like that in the natural order. Okay, so if you want to combine these two names, so there are two data sets you are taking, two different ways the person's name is existing in the data set. Then what you have to do, you have to carefully jumble this and make it into a single data set. Okay, so that is these are all several excellent examples of inconsistencies. So I think I will stop it here. Inconsistencies, and let me finish this also. And so far I will just go back. Data discovery. The tasks or steps involved in the data wrangling is data discovery, data structuring, data cleaning, data enriching, data validation. These are the 5 steps. And there is 6th step also. That is nothing but data publishing. Okay. So under data validation, we have seen A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay. So it is F, E actually. So this is the 5 validations I have discussed, and 6 tasks are there. Now I have to discuss the last step. Okay. Now the last step is the data publishing. The high quality wrangled data. At this point, the data is totally available for me. It is free from outliers, free from inconsistencies, free from structural errors, free from missing values, free from duplicates. Everything is corrected. Now anybody can take this data for their analysis. Okay. So how the people know that this data is available? So you have to make all the stakeholders and you have to publish this in a place where it can be accessed by all users or intended users, because this data may be applicable only within an organization. So within the data, all employees, those concerned with this, they must have the access. You have the access control for this place. So you have to publish this data into the place where intended users are allowed to use the data. So this publishing part. So without publishing, making it public, whatever you have done earlier, it has no use. Okay. So data can be deposited into a new architecture or new database. So you have come across, you have accessed the data from maybe some thousands and millions of data sets also sometimes, and you have to combine the data and enrich the data to be deposited into a data base or some architecture. If you want to go for new architecture, which is local to you, you have to deposit this data into a correct database and correct architecture. That is more important. Okay. So this architecture, after getting the data, if you need some change of an architecture or change of database or structures, you can do at this stage. Okay. So after that, nothing is available for you to do that. It is something like a quality control in an organization where it leaves the company and enters the market. Okay. So this is the bottleneck basically. This is where you have to take care. And from this data, we may even create larger and more complex data structures. So this data, after you post this data, after you publish this data into places, some other stakeholders, some other users, intended users take this data from different places like this similar data, and so they may go for larger and larger complex data structure. So it can be a final data set, or it may act as a intermediary data sets for other users. Okay. And it can be even data warehouses. So where the entire thing is because data warehouse, it is a huge data, very complex data. We have different complex data structures also. So that is where if needed, it can go into this also, and the endless possibility. So it is left to you. It is basically left to you how you want the users of this data use this data, and it is left to all the stakeholders how they use this data. Okay, so I think I will stop it here. Thank you for your attention.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.